Today, we'd like to talk to you about war as a part of our show, about the spiritual reasons of war. There are enough commentators in the world that explain the reasons for war, but we'd like to look at war from the spiritual point of view. And the first question would be, what is war in spirituality? Is war a natural state? Yes, war is the most natural state up to the point of the complete correction of the world, because the world consists of two opposite forces, plus and minus, day and night, whatever. You can always divide an equality into the quality and its opposite, and the antagonistic relations between them. So, if, for example, I take Thomas Hobbes, for example, the philosopher, and Jean-Jacques Rousseau, then they looked at humanity differently. One of them said that, like you said, that war is the state of man, that's how he's born into it. And Jean-Jacques Rousseau said that it's all in all a result of circumstances and the influence of the environment, that man in and of himself is good. All of nature consists of two opposite forces that exist in a certain state of relative balance and balance between them. And the balance is constantly breached and regained partially, and this is what's called life. So it's like Bala Sulam, the Kabbalist of the 20th century, wrote that there are two forces in the world, positive and negative, and he explained how for millions of years these forces constantly switch. Sometimes the positive prevailed, sometimes the negative, until it came to balance, and our planet was formed, and everything that took place from there on, the vegetative, animate, human beings. So war is a natural state. It only has to be balanced out. Right. Peace is an unnatural state. There is no peace in the world, and it can be only if we attain it upon the correct balance between two opposite forces. Okay, we'll come back to that. Why is so much attention dedicated to war and all the biblical stories in the Torah? Oh, we're talking about it right now. That war is a natural state of the world, consisting of two opposite forces, and therefore, to bring these two forces into some kind of balance between them, into some kind of proper, correct interaction between them, so it will be possible to get some kind of benefit of them working together toward the same goal, that is peace. Yeah, but on the other hand, it says that the Torah is all about love toward your fellow man. That Torah explains how can we constantly try and maintain these two forces for them to work toward one common goal, and that will be peace. So the Torah is an instruction of how to balance out these two forces in nature within a person. Yes, and how to correctly direct them so that the world will be in peace. Okay, maybe another example from our source texts. The word tzava in Hebrew, army, it consists of the words tse ubo. Army in Hebrew consists of the words tse ubo, come and go, or exit and enter. That a person comes under the influence of the ego and comes out, exits it, etc., etc. On all levels. This is what we do all the time. That once we feel this force prevailing in ourselves and then on the other. And all sources talk about inner wars. It doesn't matter. We see the expression of wars in the physical world. So this process is inevitable, it's inevitable, and well, it's advancing, but the formula is simple. The revelation of the right line, revelation of the left line, some kind of middle line appears in between them, then it disappears, then again, one line prevails over the other, minus over plus, plus over minus, and that's how all the time development goes. So if everything's predetermined in nature, then it's impossible to change. The things that are happening in all wars need to be revealed. The Third and Fourth World Wars as well, as Kabbalists write. Unless we will apply the effort to bring these two opposite forces into balance between them. So, in a person's inner world, war is inevitable. It's like inhale, exhale. The Creator, He created the evil inclination, man's ego, that's how it is. But with the way it's expressed in our physical world, the war doesn't necessarily have to appear in our world. If we will work on it internally, then we will also achieve external equilibrium. Because, it's nice to sit in a laboratory and discuss wars and write books, but when someone's shooting under your window and people that are close to you are dying, then how do you behave in these situations? The main thing is education. We talked about this many times on our talks. The main thing in our world is the lack of education that will completely direct a person only to search for the middle line between the right and left. Can we say that if a war is already expressed in matter, in a person, in humanity, then it means that humanity lost the inner war? Or is it not that unequivocal? No. It's a loss then. But there is a fight going on different levels all the time. Sometimes it turns into war. And you carry on. So if a war if it already becomes physical in the corporeal realm, then it's a bad sign. It means that the forces were given to the evil inclination and it comes into action and there's no salvation. So if a war already began, then you can't prevent it through prayer. It's too late for that. No, the force was given to the evil force. To the evil angel, to the saboteur. Like Bala writes that if it already starts there, as he wrote during World War II, that there's nothing that you can do. That's the most frightening thing, that you can't prevent it. Because before that, it's hard to believe that something will happen. We see it all the time, that a person doesn't believe that something might happen. And until the very last moment, that's how he is, in a state that, everything will pass. But when it all begins already, it's too late. You can't run, you can't pray, prayer doesn't help. The only thing that helps is time. Well, not only. Still, nonetheless, it's necessary to try and perform corrections on a higher level. Meaning, to make a correction with a larger amount of participants, and then it's going to be more intense, and in some way it can even suppress the evil that comes in the current moment. Is there some kind of difference between the forms of war? There's civil, religious, informative, cyber, from the point of view of the correction of humanity. Now, all wars are the lack of balance between the right and left lines, between the good and bad, between the quality of bestowal and the quality of reception. That's how it always is, only on different levels. So, like you said, between the good and the bad. In our world, it's very hard to decipher where's the good and where's the bad, because History is written by the conquerors, usually. No, it doesn't matter what happens. We're talking about what happens, and not how is it judged and what's written. So in our world, there's no such thing that one side is good, the other side is evil. Well, actually, you can say that the people that start a war and kill others, they're the evil. So there is a difference between the attackers. Yes, undoubtedly. Well, they have their justifications. It doesn't matter. Justification means nothing. That a person kills another person, that is tremendous evil.
Да, мы тоже коснемся этого принципа, что когда есть даже четкие законы в Торе.
There are even very clear laws in the Torah. When can you kill someone? When someone comes to kill you, and then you need to kill him first.
Война — это всегда погибшие люди.
War is always young people dying. What's the point of it?
Это исправление тоже.
It too is a correction, but in a very acute manner, dramatic way. But it is correction too.
Есть ли разница, как погибает человек?
Is there a difference about how do people die? There are four ways. There are four deaths. There is stoning, there is suffocating, killing by spear. But one way or another, the way in which a person dies is not up to him. It depends on the root of his soul.
Сегодня в войны вмешивается искусственный интеллект,
Today, artificial intellect is involved in wars. It's much easier to kill a person by some kind of drone than it was before, where you had, when you had to kill a person with your sword, see his suffering. Today, you push a button, you don't even see those people. Do you think that it could increase the number of casualties? Well, in general, it's all advancing in a completely unbelievable way, but still, I think that it's calculated between the positive and negative forces, and therefore the middle line, where people will understand that they need to head toward balancing out all the positive and negative forces, emotions, awakenings in them, then that middle line will prevail. And as a result, what we'll get is people's aspiration toward the truth, balance, mutual help, mutual bestowal, and we will come to the middle line. War forms specific psychology in a person who participates in it. Do you think that a person who was at war, he is more prepared for spiritual development? In a physical war, you mean? Yeah. More ready for spiritual development. Maybe to the contrary, he understands already what that is, and he doesn't want it. Not like, some teenager who wants to try everything out. Or, from another point of view, that at war there's always the spirit of unity. We can say that is a byproduct that is necessary in order to achieve victory. So if we're saying that nature is pushing us toward connection, that's something completely different. There is the cause and its consequence. If the reason is in that I'm going to war in order to unite with others and create a certain common condition, then that's a different kind of war. It's a war against yourself, against the ego that does not allow us to unite. And if we're going to kill someone or conquer someone, then our unification is egoistic. It is meant in order to kill someone, to defeat someone. To defeat someone. That's a completely different goal. I'm saying that all these wars, on the one hand, they bring to greater conflict between people, and therefore there's hate after war for centuries, after the war is over already, and it is as if against the direction in which nature wants to integrate us. Yes, but on the other hand, it points out, it reveals all those reasons that exist between the nations, and there is what to correct. Yeah, like you said, that it's written in all of our source texts that the hate is rooted in creation itself, in Adam HaRishon, as it says. And therefore, when it becomes revealed already, then it's good. Yeah, it's already half a step forward toward correction. So people need to understand what is it for and how to correct it. And on the other hand, also, when people are in war, it really brings them closer together. They sense what unity is. Yeah, that's why many people like the army. And so from that point of view, nature too is somehow teaching us, yes.
War
is always related to corporeal fear. The fear for my life, for myself, for my relatives, cannot be transformed into spiritual fear before the upper force. A person always turns to the upper force in such situations. Indirectly, but yes, it can help in order to come out from under the corporeal fear and to rise to fear on the human level already. How not to go crazy from all the news about war that makes you, feel danger all the time. I understand this. My advice is, for this we need to simply understand war and its meaning. What do we need to do in order to nonetheless invert it from what goes on, that it's not the purpose itself, but to turn it into a tool for the achievement of the higher purpose of unification, meaning in war, we need to reveal both in ourselves and in our enemy all that is pro and con that can bring us to unity so there will be no war, to create something that is the opposite of war. And then we will see that we can turn the means of war not against our enemy that's just like me, but against the enemy that is inside of me. And then I will already fight my ego, rise above it. And that's how I will come closer to others, and war for me will cease to be a war between people, but it is then a personal war against my ego, and as a result I will defeat it and will achieve true victory over myself.
Это уже высший пилотаж, конечно, то, что вы сейчас сказали. Это уже человек, который занимается этим всем. Вот как раз такой вопрос у меня есть похоже, что помогите, как можно связать военные действия под...
How are the military actions related? How do we coincide them with our perception of reality? Because Bala Sulam says, he writes that everything occurs within ourselves. That when we see in front of us the tremendous world with all it's fulfilled with, it's not really in reality outside of ourselves, but inside ourselves. At the backside of our brain, there's like a... There's like, we see everything on the back wall of our head, like in a camera. And it's interesting, but, when people are running around shooting, how can we... No. Nothing. In this state, I can't tell a person who's non-prepared for it, I can't tell him anything. And for someone who is prepared, to the measure to which a person's prepared, I can remind him that which goes on the outside, it is a copy of that which goes on inside of us. If we correct our qualities, then we will not see the war that's going on outside of us because it won't occur inside of us. I don't know if this really happened or are these, stories about it, tales that when in some village, I can't even remember where exactly that was. Soldiers came in and there were chassids sitting, eating, and one soldier came up to one of the chassids and, even took out his sword. And the Kabbalist kept on eating, drinking, as if he doesn't exist, and the soldiers simply left. Are these stories, or is it possible? Of course it's possible. It's like in the Matrix. But a person is so much sure that he sees the upper force behind it all? Yeah. He's so connected with the upper force that his relations with the upper force they immediately changed the world. So he didn't even try to defend himself. He was certain that it is simply an image. Yeah. It is possible to reach such a state. Yes.
Who
decides when does an inner war end and it is time? Who decides when does the inner war end and it's time for these things to appear in the corporeal world? Only the Creator, because it doesn't depend on the person himself, but it depends on the corrections that we're doing in the upper system. If it already comes to its correction, then of course from it comes signals down to our world that correcting signals to our world. But in all Kabbalistic texts, it's written that there's none else besides him, and that this force is complete, that the upper force is complete love. And it says that the Creator himself, he begins all wars and conflicts between people. What's the purpose then? In order to give us an opportunity to become a part of the correction, to correct ourselves and thus correct the world. The world is a copy of our inner state. Meaning, were there no external wars, we wouldn't have been able to acknowledge. Right. We wouldn't be able to acknowledge our own ego, right? So a war is necessary for a person to be able to think about the meaning of life, right? Doesn't the Creator have any other way to teach us? It happens naturally as a result of that which is created, the opposite force, the opposed force that is created in our world, and a person is given to govern it. So please, no, but we're talking about wars on the level of thoughts. Is it better than in other sensations of ours? Yeah, at least our bodies aren't killed. Our body is killed, and then you need to do it all over again. And so what if they're killed? You think that parting with some desire or thought is a lesser loss than the loss of the body? Well, the way I feel it, yeah. Maybe theoretically it isn't. Maybe someone can say that he's fed up with the body already, and he's willing to fight on the level of thoughts. To lose a thought and desire is much easier than to lose your body. There are many desires, the body's one. We'll talk on this topic later. During war, society not only develops, but it also regresses. We already said that the wounds that remain after the war, they aren't healed or cured for a long, long time. Is it possible to hasten the process of healing because it could take hundreds of years? No. It depends on the way in which a person is awoken by the upper forces, meaning by the Creator through the system of the upper forces, and how does he react to it. It could be fast, it could be slow, but actually it's possible to hasten it. The process can be accelerated. The Third World War Can you describe it in spirituality, how it would work? These are conflicts inside my desires, conflicts in the relations between people. I hope that this will be the relations between people. They will start between people, end between people, and will go by very quickly without being clothed in any actions of our world, in our world.
На вопросы о решении, как выйти из и прекратить уже начавшийся конфликт, вы всегда
About how to stop the already ongoing conflict, you always say, and so it says in the books, prayer. Can you explain the mechanism? How does it work? Conflict, prayer, conflict. How does it work? How is the prayer related, which is an inner desire of mine, with stopping the war, for example? That's a natural prayer. I want to be saved. And how does that turn on different mechanisms in nature that stops the war? Because you tap into the upper system, and there you turn on the middle line between the right and the left. That balances out all the opposite lines, and that way you cause in nature balance.
Более подробно поговорим. Понятно. Это сложный механизм.
Well, it's a complicated mechanism.
Вы говорите, что каббалист не
You say that a Kabbalist does not ask the Creator to even correct the most terrible situation, but only asks for the power to justify everything that is going on. We don't need to correct anything. We need to only correct our attitude toward the world, and then we will see that the world is corrected. So if there is a war, I don't need to ask for the Creator to stop this war. That's how it is. No, you want to stop this war, but you need to understand that to stop the war, you can do it only if the war in you stops. So I'm not asking for this war to stop in the external world, but I'm asking for it to stop inside of me. Yes, and that will be a correction. So again, we're talking about a person who understands how this mechanism works. If this is what all people will think, then things are going to be okay. But it's unnatural. A person naturally wants for the war to first of all stop, for, say, the threat for it to first of all stop. So do it that way on yourself. That is the shortest path.
То есть, получается, на материальном уровне я все равно есть такой даже
on the corporeal level, there's not, it's a fear that you feel. You need to act on the corporeal level, but along with it, you need to understand that the most important action is on the spiritual, higher level. In your feelings, emotions, there you need to balance out all your qualities. When a war breaks out, which side the Kabbalists take? What we just said, to stop the war by way of the unification of the opposite forces in a middle line. You're saying that victory is the correction of the egoistic heart, and any other kind of victory actually causes even greater conflicts. True? Yes. Why? Because you didn't do anything. You didn't win. You didn't defeat the evil. To the contrary, maybe you only increased it. In the past 70 years, there are less military conflicts and casualties, and we'd like to believe that the world became more civilized, tolerant, but researchers, they name more pragmatic reasons, like better medicine. It's simply that in the past more people died. It says that in the past every third person, now every 10th person during conflicts. There are economic reasons. And in one case or another, there's more tolerance. What do you think? What is the reason? For the people are afraid. People, they have the ability to have it good, live a good life, something that was unique only for the 1% of humanity. Now, 20 or more % of society can allow themselves to live a good life, and they don't allow different conflicts to unfold just so. And there's the calculation. Should I start a war, or can I live a good, nice life, especially for the sake of the children? So you think that that's the main reason for which there are less conflicts? Of course. A completely egoistic reason. So it's actually good for people to, it won't happen one way or another. Meaning the Creator won't allow us to, nature won't let us? Exactly. Because logically, if you think about it, what do you need all these wars for? A person who's a developed being, it's irrational to participate in a war. You don't need to talk about rationality. It could be different on a completely different level. How is it possible to use for the sake of spiritual development this new type of wars where any person in the world on his own screen can see a war? Today it's informative war. Actually, today a person sitting next to, he can watch it on screen. Online. So, do you think that it's good from the point of view of, I think that it's all okay because it helps a person to be a part of all of these events and to look for his participation in the ongoing events and their outcome. So, sympathizing with it helps correction. Okay, and last, Kabbalists always talked about education. Baal Sulam writes that the most important thing is education, and that it's necessary in order to awaken in a person fear and passion if he doesn't experience them. That's actually what we're talking about now, that due to the development of the internet, a person can see what is going on, and this way it influences him. So you're saying that without education, there are zero chances of preventing wars? Right. And education means, if I understand correctly, is to show a person, even before the war starts, the fear of, suppose, Third World War. Many times we see movies about the possible catastrophes, I can imagine. No, that's not the main thing. The main thing is to show a person a perspective, meaning that not just that someone dies, etc., but what is it leading to? That there is no perspective in a war, that it simply consumes lives and mainly time that is given to us in order to correct the world. So this is something that needs to be taught. As Baal Sulam writes, that this education, meaning to show a person in advance, what can it lead to? Okay, so we covered this from many sides. The main thing, we laid it down. Okay, blitz questions. Do you consider that humanity is tired of wars? On the one hand, yes, but on the other hand, it can't resist it. In the future, there will be ideological wars. The feeling is that contemporary conflicts bear especially an economic character. Do you agree? Yeah. In the future, wars aren't going to be fought through weapons. Through a special kind of weapon. Economic, computers, etc. Physical wars, is it a chance for correction or a forced correction on part of nature? Physical wars are necessary because actually everything starts in corporeality, in matter. Do you think that a third world war is already going on? Well, it's starting someplace. What for you is victory in a war? Victory in a war is a condition where the people participating in the war that ignite wars start understanding that it's purposeless. How is it possible to prevent wars? To show people that there is a completely different, that nature has a completely different goal that can't be achieved by nature. Is it possible to name the pandemic, the corona, a biological war against the ego? No, I don't think that the ego suffered any kind of special defeat as a result. But nonetheless, such events like this pandemic help balance the ego out a bit. Is war a punishment on part of the upper force, nature, for some actions or lack of actions by man? War is the path of man's advancement toward the complete corrected state. Only depends on what level does he do it. Is it necessary for a person to get used to an inner war? The innermost war is the most real when a person fights himself. Can a person get used to an external war? There are people that all life long, practically for dozens of years, are in a state of war with one another. Like you have some tribes someplace in the Amazon that are constantly fighting each other. But actually, the state of war is a constant state in all of humanity, in our entire world. Thank you very much. Your wishes for us to be engaged in the war between our ego and the Creator in the correct manner and see it as the achievement of our victory over our ego. Thank you very much. Till next time.